Welcome to the Rewind Time podcast, where we have conversations about all things history, even with legends from the past. This is episode 5, Ranking the Greatest Presidents of All Time.
We're diving deep into a brand new survey of how scholars rank all 45 presidents.
Oh, wow.
From top-tier leaders to, well, let's just say, those who missed the Mount Rushmore memo.
Right.
Are you ready to unpack this thing? It's a biggie.
Absolutely. And it's way more than just a popularity contest.
Oh, for sure.
This ranking gives us a glimpse into how experts actually view presidential success, like what truly matters in the long run.
I like that.
And how those views, well, they can change over time.
Okay, so let's cut to the chase. Who takes the crown? Drumroll, please.
Okay.
Lincoln. Again, this time he's snagging a whopping 95 out of 100.
Wow.
What is it about Honest Abe that keeps him at the top, year after year?
You know, it's actually fascinating how Lincoln's legacy seems to just become even more solid as time goes on. It's not just surviving the Civil War, right? It's how he led through it.
Right.
Think about it. The Emancipation Proclamation, the Gettysburg Address, these weren't just, actions. They were defining moments for a nation. And scholars today, they still feel that resonance.
Yeah, and he's not alone up there on that presidential Mount Olympus, right?
Right.
We've got FDR, George Washington, Teddy Roosevelt,
Of course.
and Thomas Jefferson, all rounding out the top 5.
The OGs.
Yeah, these are the names you kind of expect, right? The gold standard.
Yeah, in a way, for sure.
What is it about these presidencies?
Well, they all faced just incredible challenges, right?
Oh, yeah.
But they also embodied, at least in the eyes of many, the core ideals of American democracy,
Right.
And their decisions still echo through history,
Yeah.
which is huge when historians are evaluating greatness.
It's got to have a lasting impact.
Absolutely.
Speaking of challenges, let's talk about a newer face on this list. President Biden.
Okay.
This is actually his first time being ranked in this particular survey.
Oh, interesting.
And he comes in at number 14.
Okay.
Not too shabby for a first outing, right?
No, that's definitely noteworthy, especially compared to, how some other recent presidents have debuted in this ranking.
Right.
When Obama first popped up on this list back in 2015, he came in at number 16. Well, his 2018 debut was a score of 13.
13. Okay, so let's flip the script and talk about the other end of the spectrum.
Okay.
Those presidents who consistently seem to find themselves, well, at the bottom of the barrel.
Right.
No surprise here. But Trump is still holding tight to that very last spot.
Yeah, it's definitely in line with what we've seen in other recent surveys.
There's a trend.
It seems like it, yeah.
Interesting.
His presidency was just incredibly polarizing, full of controversy, and the historians, well, they haven't held back.
No, they have not.
Alongside Trump, you usually see names like James Buchanan, Andrew Johnson,
Yeah, those are some familiar names.
Franklin Pierce, and Warren G. Harding.
So what lands these particular presidents in bottom rung historically? And any common threads there?
It's rarely just one thing. It's often a whole mix, like ineffective leadership during those really critical moments.
Oh, I see.
Scandals, a lack of any, truly significant achievements.
Yeah.
Or even decisions that, looking back, really did some damage to the nation.
Long term.
Exactly. Long term.
Like ripple effect.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm curious. I've always wondered this.
Yeah.
Does party affiliation actually play a big role in these rankings?
I see what you mean.
Like, do Democrats always favor Democratic presidents and Republicans, that kind of thing?
That's a great question.
And
it definitely factors in, but it's not as simple as you might think.
Okay.
While there's bound to be some natural bias, right?
Yeah.
It's not always a clean split.
It's interesting.
Like one example that stands out is Bill Clinton.
Okay.
His rankings tend to buck that trend of clear-cut partisan polarization.
So it's more nuanced than just red team, blue team.
Way more nuanced.
It's about how you govern, the impact you make beyond the letter next to your name on the ballot.
100%.
It's about the long game. Yes.
The legacy you leave behind.
Exactly.
Okay, this next category is where I think we might already have a clear winner.
Oh, really?
The survey also looked at which president was considered the most polarizing.
Oh, interesting.
And I think we both might know where this is going.
Kind of feeling, yeah.
This one probably won't be a huge shock.
Right.
But Donald Trump takes the cake here. And by a landslide.
Yeah.
His presidency was undeniably one of the most, if not the most, divisive in recent memory.
Without a doubt.
And historians often point to his rhetoric, his policies,
Yeah.
even just his style of governing.
His whole approach,
Yeah.
it was all very, very different.
As major contributors to that polarization.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
But what's interesting is, while Trump might be the most polarizing figure we've seen in recent history,
Right.
he's definitely not the only one who gets those historical debates going.
Oh, absolutely not.
The survey mentions a few other presidents who tend to fall into that category.
Definitely.
Big names, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you see names like Andrew Jackson pop up,
Of course. Jackson.
Barack Obama,
Interesting.
and even Ronald Reagan.
Okay, so very different presidents, different time.
Very different. Each of them, in their own way, kind of sparked these major societal and political divides.
Okay, I'm with you.
And these are divides, honestly, that we're still dealing with today in many ways.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and you look at Jackson, his stance on Native American removal, that was major.
Huge and still so relevant today.
Absolutely. Then you've got Obama and the Affordable Care Act.
Oh, Obamacare.
Exactly. And Reagan with his economic policies.
Reaganomics.
Yeah. These weren't just like policy decisions, on paper.
Right, they were felt.
They were cultural earthquakes.
Yeah.
They shifted the ground under everyone's feet.
It's like that idea we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
About a presidency's lasting impact.
Exactly. The ripple effect.
Okay, so this next part of the survey is something I always find fascinating.
Oh, really? Okay.
Historians were asked to name which presidents they considered the most overrated
Ooh.
and underrated.
I love this.
Talk about a historical hot take, right?
Right. It's like, who's getting a little too much credit
Yeah.
and who deserves a second look?
Exactly.
Maybe even a boost in the rankings.
I like it. Okay, so who makes the list?
The two names that you see consistently at the top are John F. Kennedy
Okay.
and Ronald Reagan.
Really? JFK. That one surprises me, I gotta say.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah.
It's not that he wasn't a significant figure by any means,
Sure.
but some historians argue that his presidency, while impactful, was tragically cut short.
Right.
So you combine that with this whole mythology,
Yeah.
and it's easy to maybe see an inflated view of what he actually accomplished during his time in office.
It's true. The Kennedy mystique is pretty powerful.
It is. It really is.
So what about Reagan? Why do some historians see him as potentially overrated?
Well, a lot of the criticisms around Reagan tend to focus on his economic policies
Okay.
and their long-term social impact.
I see.
Specifically, the argument is that his policies, while popular with some, actually ended up making economic inequality worse.
So that's a debate that's still going on today, really.
Oh, absolutely, and probably will for a long time to come.
Right.
It's a big one.
Who gets the underrated title? Who are those hidden gems that historians think we should be paying more attention to?
The two names that consistently come up in that category are Jimmy Carter
Okay.
and Ulysses S. Grant.
Interesting. Those two definitely don't get the same kind of historical spotlight as some of the others we've mentioned.
No, they really don't.
Why is that, do you think?
Well, it's complex.
Right.
Carter, for instance, he's often remembered, unfortunately, for the economic struggles of the late 70s
Right.
and, of course, the Iran hostage crisis.
Right. That was a defining moment.
It really was. But historians are starting to revisit his presidency with a fresh perspective.
So what are they finding? What's getting a new look?
Well, they're highlighting his incredible dedication to human rights,
Oh, wow.
his commitment to diplomacy.
He was very big on that. Yeah.
He really was. And then there's Grant.
Yeah. What about Grant?
He's often associated with scandals,
Ah,
unfortunately.
The scandals. Yeah. It seems like every history textbook kind of leads with that.
It really does, doesn't
Yeah.
it? But there's been this real resurgence in scholarly interest in Grant.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Well, there's this new focus on his really pivotal role in Reconstruction after the Civil War.
Okay.
And his really unwavering efforts to protect the rights of African Americans during a time that was incredibly tumultuous.
Incredibly tumultuous, absolutely.
And it's amazing how the passage of time and new research, it can really shift our perspectives.
It really makes you think about the lens we use when we look back at the past, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And that ongoing conversation, the
Yeah.
constant reevaluation.
Right.
That's what makes studying presidential history so fascinating.
It really is. There's always something new to discover.
Exactly. So to our listener out there, we leave you with this. As you reflect on these rankings, on the stories behind the names,
Right.
what stands out to you? Who do you think deserves to be higher or lower on this list?
Good question.
And why? Because at the end of the day, engaging with history,
Yeah,
it's a deeply personal experience.
it really is.
It's about asking questions, challenging assumptions,
Absolutely.
and yeah, even forming your own conclusions.
I love that.